Hello readers and writers, I'm MJ, and let's talk about writing non-binary characters. Non-binary characters are more than their pronouns. Actually, non-binary isn't necessarily a gender identity at all. Yes, some people do have this as their sole gender identity, but ultimately, it is more of a catch-all of all gender identities that do not fit neatly into the gender binary of male and female. There are more gender identities than I could possibly ever include in this video, and honestly, I don't even know them all. A person's identity is unique, and it is important to flesh out exactly who your character is and where they fall in the non-binary spectrum. Let's take me for an example. I identify as trans. My gender identity is different from what I was assigned at birth. I also identify as non-binary, as my gender identity is not within the male-female binary. However, what I would say my actual gender identity is agender, meaning that I do not have a gender identity. I am neither male or female. I just am. And if that wasn't confusing enough, I also identify at times as transmasculine. However, I do this less and less because I feel it implies that I identify as male when really I identify as me. And I really want people to stop using feminine terminology when talking about me. However, being AFAB, or assigned female at birth, is another aspect of my identity. Let's talk about a character that I'm going to write about. Not really, this is just for this video. They are also non-binary. So, I can make them just like me, right? Sometimes. Sure. Jupiter from my novel, Neurodiverse, is a lot like me. They're also agender non-binary. However, this new character is genderqueer. They're both male and female. But how this presents is as unique as the person. Some individuals are male for periods of time, and other times are female. Others are both male and female at the exact same time. I get it. If you're cis, this may not make any sense to you, but it isn't your gender identity. That doesn't make this gender identity invalid. It's just different. It is just as valid as whatever your gender identity is. These are only a small sample of gender identity. Before you write any non-binary character, no matter if they are your main character or they just show up in one scene, make sure you understand how they identify. Do your research. Non-binary people, we're not all shadowy beings without physical shape. Look at me, definitely have a shape. Have hair color, have hair length, have facial structure. The amount of times I have read a non-binary character written by a cis author that is just a vague blob in my head. They have no physical description at all, as if the author was afraid of doing so. Non-binary people are still people. We have bodies. We have diverse body styles, and talking about them doesn't automatically mean gendering your character. But also, it could, so be a bit careful. Do you know there are non-binary people with facial hair and a chest? Someone could present as super feminine to you, but they're also agender. Every non-binary person is androgynous, but some of us do aim to be. We also have faces that have shapes and hair of various lengths. We are skinny and robust. We don't always have to be this mysterious figure. We can just be, well, people. Let's talk about pronouns. Pronouns do not make a person's gender identity. It's just another way of expressing it. Also, never use the phrase preferred pronouns. A person's pronouns are their pronouns. In The Immortal Part of Myself, my science fiction story, I wrote about Riley, whose pronouns are she, her. I did that as a pushback on this concept that all non-binary people need to use they, them, or neopronouns. Riley is an agender adult exploring her gender identity in the novel while dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff. She explored pronouns in the book, but never changed hers. In contrast, Jupiter, the main character of Neurodiverse, his pronouns are they, them. The pushback I have seen from using they, them pronouns in books is too much. Don't be afraid to have your character use they, them pronouns. It is not grammatically incorrect. But you can also use neopronouns. Neopronouns are pronouns such as em, zizere, etc., and they can be used by characters as well. I personally love em as pronouns, and they are appropriate pronouns to use for me, but they're not as easily accepted in everyday life as they, them, which I also like. And overall, though, I'm not a huge fan of neopronouns. For my own identity, they come across as too gendered, but many people do relate to them and are excellent pronouns for them to use. Just do your research first. Why is your character using them? And again, it's not grammatically incorrect to use they, them pronouns. Look at writer's manuals and you will find singular they, them pronouns usage. They're grammatically correct. They've also been used for hundreds of years. The singular use of they is actually been around longer than the singular use of you, so we're just not even gonna go there. If you personally have an issue with the use of they, them pronouns, well, rethink why you're writing a non-binary character. If it's because you're non-binary and you don't relate to they, them pronouns, or you don't like them, valid. If you are cisgendered and you think they're grammatically incorrect or inconvenient, then maybe you shouldn't be writing about non-binary identities. And maybe it's because your character specifically would not use they, them pronouns. That is very valid. There are also a lot of less valid reasons that I will not be engaging in today. Get sensitivity readers. I will say this about everything. Sensitivity readers are important. Also, make sure your sensitivity readers match your character's actual gender identity. I may have some more input into genderqueer characters than a cis-het reader who has never once thought about their gender and has never been through a transition. Well, I don't know what it's like to actually identify with a gender binary, let alone multiple. Just like those that don't identify as agender don't know what it's like to be agender. Again, non-binary is a catch-all category. Your character should be more nuanced. Let's talk about the term "me." This is a very valid term for non-binary that I hate with every fiber of my being. Maybe if I was younger and hipper and cooler, I would enjoy the term. But I'm not. I'm in my 40s. I am not cool. If you use this term in YA, it'll probably be a hit. If you use it with an older non-binary people, it may not land. Know your audience. What about the term third gender? Nope. No. Not at all. Third gender implies that there is a unified third gender. In some cultures, there actually are, but I would hope that gender would have an actual name. And in actual cultures on Earth that have a third gender identity, they do have actual names. And if you had a third gender in a fictional world, then it should probably as well. It also doesn't take the place of a gender outside binary. The actual term third gender is something liked by very few non-binary people, but overall it is often found to be offensive. If you're a cis, then you should probably not be using it at all. How about two-spirit? This is a term that is specific to Indigenous peoples whose gender is outside the male-female binary. It is not part of my culture, and I will not talk about it except to say that it should only be used by Indigenous peoples, and that any representation should be specifically sensitivity read by a Two-Spirit Indigenous person, specifically from the same nationality as your character. I probably didn't hit other terms. If you have any questions about other terms, please leave them in the comments below. Or if you have any questions about non-binary identities in general, leave them in the comments below. I will do my best to answer or point you towards resources that may help you. And as always, keep reading, keep writing, and until next time.